Let's talk all about webinars and masterclasses. I'm going to walk you through what I had in my webinars that enabled me to make over $25 million. dollars. And I'm going to answer first two questions that are looming. One, do webinars and masterclasses still work? The answer unequivocally is yes. So I have a friend who just let me know his results, and in the last 30 days, he made $270,000 from his webinar. I'll let you know now that it was for a $1,000 offer. Now, the second thing is, I have two former clients and friends who have reached out and they've asked me to promote their webinars to their audiences. These are seasoned entrepreneurs. They've been doing webinars for years. One of them has generated over $10 million because she enrolled in my courses and learned how to do webinars. They are reaching out to me to promote their webinars because they know that they're going to be profitable. Now, the second question, am I still doing webinars? And if not, why not? So I did a live webinar every Wednesday for 2 years straight. So I did the same webinar over 100 times. It enabled me to hone the skills and the framework I'm going to give you in this video. So I'm retired for the moment. However, I will be introducing webinars and masterclasses back into my strategy when I launch my next program. So in this video, let me go over what I'm going to cover. The first thing I'm going to cover is that I chose webinars when I had no email list, no audience, and no personal brand. I was just getting started online and I wanted to know what is the most scalable and fastest way to grow my program, knowing that I'm starting from no audience. And webinars was the way to do that. Now, I heard about someone who had made $20 million doing a webinar for his online course in just a few years. And one thing about me, all I need is one case study. It's like the 4 minute mile. If somebody else has done it, then I know it's possible for me too. And the second thing is, I heard someone say that when you do a webinar every week for a year, you will make $1 million. And so that's why I committed to doing my live webinar every week for a year. And I ended up doing it for 2 years. So I went from zero to a million in 2 years. Majority of that million I made within the last 6 month period when I committed to that weekly live webinar. And then I went on over the next 2 years to generate an additional $10 million. And then the following year after that, I introduced my advanced offer that was a five-figure, it was an $18,000 offer. And I did the same webinar formula and I made another 10 million. So I was able to make 20 million over a 5 year period. And it was all because of my webinar. My webinar was the main way that I enrolled people into the course. The reason it was so powerful for me is because, again, I had no organic content. I didn't have YouTube videos. I didn't have an Instagram presence. I wasn't on social media. So my question was, how can I reach cold leads, so people who have never heard of me, and within 90 minutes, get them to know, like, and trust me and believe enough in my framework, in my story, and in themselves to enroll in my program? And it worked. A webinar was like a condensed version of introducing someone to your world, telling them your rock bottom story, showing them your frameworks, showing them your receipts, and instilling that belief in them because they saw you in your story. All right, so let's get into the first piece. So you need to get clear on the transformation. So for me, I always start with my story, and I want you to start with your story. If you've watched my other videos, you're familiar with the RES framework, where you write down the results, experiences, and skills you've gotten in your life, and then you circle a couple of them that you want to teach to. And then you identify who can learn and who can benefit most from the transformation you've gotten. Okay. So I got clear in my transformation. At the time, I had already worked at Udemy, which is the largest marketplace of online courses. And when I was at Udemy, I was a coach, I was a marketing manager, and it was my job to coach people who were new online or had existing personal brands. And my full time job was doing coaching calls with them, writing emails about how they can turn their story into a profitable online course. So I had years of experience of doing that. I had already launched 3 online courses. So my transformation that I was helping people get is, how do I monetize my story and my skills and my expertise with an online course or digital products? That was the transformation. I got really clear about it. And more specifically, I had specific milestones that I had achieved that made the headline on my webinar registration page. When people landed there, it said how I made $25,000 in 1 month from my online course with Instagram. That was an example of one of my early webinars. So I want you to think about a specific milestone, a specific result that is measurable, that your customers can see themselves in. And that is going to be the transformation that you teach on the course. So that's the first thing. And then use your own story as testimony. So notice how it said how I did this, right? And then eventually, after I had a brand in the market, I transitioned to learn how to create and launch your online course in 30 days. And I changed the positioning of the webinar because the market was more mature and people knew what online courses were. They knew they were profitable. And so I switched it from how I did this to how to create this. And by that time, I had many testimonials. I had students who had crossed $1 million in their sales, and I had those visible on my webinar registration page. Now, after you are clear about your testimony and clear about the transformation that you are helping people get, the second thing is you need to get clear on the 3 misconceptions that your customer has on why they can't achieve this transformation. And usually you can find a few of these common things, right? Usually a misconception people have is, I don't have enough time. So regardless of what your niche is, regardless of what topic you're doing, I've helped people create webinars and products on all kinds of topics in health and wellness, in arts, how to write your book, how to become a paid actor, how to get better mindset for your auditions, to love and relationships, how to co-parent, how to be better in your marriage. I have helped people across all niches. So whatever topic you have, there has been so much money made and so many people's lives changed because of it. So I'm going to walk through my misconceptions and I want you to start taking notes on what yours might be. So my first misconception was, I don't have enough time. It takes forever to create an online course. Okay, that was the first one. The second was, I don't have a topic. I don't know what to teach in my online course. I'm not an expert on anything. The third one was around tech. What the tech? I don't know what kind of tech to use. And the tech is complicated and expensive. And then I had a fourth one that I would introduce in and out of my different webinars. The fourth one was about traction. How on earth do I make a full-time income from this? How do I get traction if I don't have a following and if I'm really starting from scratch? So those were my 4: time, topic, tech, and traction. So I want you to think about what your 4 are. Now, what I then did in the webinar, right? We have our portion where we are going to be addressing these 3 misconceptions and we're going to introduce a solution to each one. So the first one, I don't have enough time. All right, you think you don't have enough time? Here's the solution. Here's the truth. The truth is you can create your online course in 2 days. And that makes people lean in like, how? How, Sway? And so then you introduce a framework. So my framework was the MVC method, the minimum viable course method. And I walked them through how the first version of your online course is a live version. So all you need to know is you just need to know what your topic is, who your customer is, what your personal testimony is, and the framework you're going to be teaching them, and then the price you're going to sell it at. After that, you can start pre-selling your course and you can start teaching it tomorrow live because you don't need to pre-record videos, right? If you're pre-recording videos, that could take weeks, and in the past, it took me months. You need to script out the videos, hire a videographer, get the perfect Hollywood style. Nah, we ain't got no time for that. And then if you are waiting until it's done to start selling it, that means you have to build an audience, you have to build an email list. That's more things to set up. So I threw all that out and I said, the answer to I don't have enough time is you are going to launch a minimum viable course. You're going to launch a live version of your program where you pre-sell it so you can start selling it tomorrow. You can start texting people, you can start getting on social media and talking about it and say, my program is starting in 30 days. Enroll now, right? And when you do that, you can pre-sell it. And that means all you do is on day 1, you show up on Zoom and you teach them live. And you say, the course consists of 4 milestones, and we're going to meet here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I'm going to teach for the first 20 minutes. Then there will be live activities, and then there will be a Q&A. And that is what an MVC, minimum viable course, is. So notice I said, you do have the time. I'm going to show you how you think it takes months to do this, lots of resources. I'm going to shrink it to 2 days to 30 days before you get started. Okay. So for you, what is that first misconception around I don't have enough time? And how can you help them smart cut? Okay. How can you help them collapse time with your solution? Now, the second misconception around I don't have a topic, I don't know what to teach. So for this one, I said, I introduced my RES framework, right? We are going to list out the results, experiences, and skills that you've had in your life. You have lived experience that you can turn into a course, okay? And so I walked them through the RES framework live. So again, I created a solution to show them it doesn't matter if you don't think you're an expert. You don't need a Grammy. You don't need to be Forbes 30 under 30, 40 under 40, 50 under 50. You don't need to be a best-selling author. You can start teaching from what you know today. All right. Okay. So the next one was around the tech. That I don't know what tech to use. The tech is so expensive and complicated. So I showed them, remember, we talked about the MVC method where you're going to teach your course live. So the only tech you need is Zoom or Google Hangouts, and you can get those both for free. That is all you need. And then you might need Google Docs so you can put the milestones and put the worksheets in there for your students. And then you just need like a WhatsApp group. So that's also free that you can message them and let them know we're going live. If you have any questions, ask me those questions here. So I solved the tech problem for them by introducing real solutions that I had used. Now, the fourth misconception was around getting traction if I don't have an audience. So I used my own experience and I showed them how I got started. So the very first launch I did for Course from Scratch, which was my signature program that I was doing this webinar for, again, I didn't have an audience. My friend had hired me to be an MC at her women's conference. And so I had never MC'd before, but she paid me $400. And I said, I'm broke and I don't have the money to fly out to New York, but we gonna find a way. I got to New York from California and I MC'd. Okay. And I did a good job. Okay. I did a great job. I was quoting Beyonce. It was fun. While I was MCing, I was being myself. I was sharing stories. I was sharing tips between sessions. I was recapping interviews of people on stage. And so after that, and this is a little key, whatever opportunity you have in life, make the most of it. Be a maximalist with these opportunities because you never know who is watching and what it will lead to. So the women who were in the audience watching me at this live event, they reached out to my friend and they said, can you bring Danielle back to do a webinar? Because she kept dropping gems about online courses and stuff that she was doing in her past job at Udemy. Can you bring her back and have her teach us? And so my friend said, can you do a webinar for the women who attended our conference? So one, I got to tap into someone else's audience because I didn't have my own. And I said, yes. And she said, when we do this webinar, we are going to keep 30% of the revenue. So you get 70%, we get 30% because we're bringing the audience. And I said, bet, we have a deal. So I went live with my webinar. It was my first time doing the webinar. I had way too much information in it. I had tech fails because this was eons ago, y'all. Okay, tech is much easier to use now. So I was using Webinar Jam at the time. It failed. There was no visual. My best friend, luckily, I love her, Crystal, she was on. She said, why don't you move people to Zoom? So I ended up doing it on Zoom. And I didn't even have the upgraded account on Zoom. So only 100 people could get in the room. So I had about 200 ladies who couldn't even get in the room for this first webinar. All the things went wrong, but you know what I did? I did it ugly. I did it anyway, and I pushed through. And I was able to make $14,000 from that first webinar, even though it wasn't very well done. Okay. I was doing it for the first time. So that is how I was able to get my sales without having any product. I hadn't created any videos for my course. I was going to do a live version of it. So I just had the curriculum, the milestones, the pricing, a way for them to pay me. And that was it. Okay. So that is a story that I tell when I'm on the how am I going to get traction if I don't have an audience? Well, you can tap into someone else's audience. Okay. Let me also speak on another framework I gave them. So for the traction piece, I show them the math. I say, guess what? If you want to make $10,000 in a month, then you can price your program at $2,000 like I've done. And if you get 5 people to enroll in your program, then you have made $10,000. So my question for them would be, can you find 5 people who are interested in your program out of the billions of people in the world who you can have a conversation with? And I do the math with them. I say, if you don't have an audience, you have an advantage because when you have an email list and you are doing a email promotion and there's no webinar, there's no calls, The conversion rate back then was about 1%. So 1% of your email subscribers would buy your offer. Okay. So if you had 10,000 people on your email list, which is a great targeted email list, that means you would get 10 people to enroll. If you had 1,000 people, you would get one person to enroll. Okay. That was the math. I hope I did that math correctly. It's something like that. So I showed them that's an email list. So if you don't have an email list, good, because it has the low conversion rate. Now, if you are doing webinars, then back then you could convert, let's say, 4 to 5% of people if you have a premium offer that's like $2,000. So 5% of people, you would need 100 live attendees to enroll 5 people and meet your goal. Okay. In order to get 100 live attendees, you would need to have 300 people register for that webinar. So if you don't have an audience, it's going to be hard if you're not running ads to get 300 people to register for your webinar and then to get 100 of them to show up live. Now, if you do enrollment calls, so if you are inviting people to I call them clarity calls or chemistry calls. If you reach out to the people you know, you start doing content and you invite them to a call. It's a 20-minute 20 to 30-minute call where you are asking them questions about where they're stuck, what they're looking for help with, and then at the end you introduce them to your program and you can enroll them. On calls, you can get as high as 20 to 30%. So that means in order to get 5 people to join your program, you just need to talk to 15 people, 15 leads on the phone. At a 30% conversion rate, you just need 15 of those discovery or clarity or chemistry calls, whatever you want to call them, enrollment calls. You just need to have 15 phone conversations to have 5 people enroll. And let's say that you don't have a 30% conversion rate, maybe it's lower. Then you might need 20 people to have 5 enroll. So my question is, can you find 20 people? Can you go on LinkedIn and find 20 leads? Can you come on YouTube and find 20 leads? Can you go on Instagram and TikTok and Threads and find 20 people to have a phone call with you? That is much easier to do than getting 300 to register for a webinar or getting 10,000 people to get on your email list. So I showed them that because of the math and when you leverage the right enrollment practice, that can actually boost your conversion rate. Okay. So I walked through that. So those are the 3 to 4 major misconceptions. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about what are those misconceptions: time, topic, tech, traction, remind. What are your customers' misconceptions? And then what is a framework that you can teach to solve that? Okay. All right. So that is going to be the meat of your webinar. That is when you are showing them, I have IP, intellectual property, that is original. I have original frameworks that I have created for my own experience, and I'm going to teach them to you. Okay. Now, the next thing is I assembled an irresistible offer. So my offer was irresistible. My offer was Course from Scratch, and it was a $2,000 program. And it was irresistible because it addressed all of their misconceptions. It was a whole solution in a box. Okay, so everything I taught on the webinar, I would go into more detail with on the course. Here's the trick to making an ironclad offer, especially if you're just getting started. It's the ABCs. Okay, I've created the ABC framework. The A is accountability. If you can offer accountability in your program, people, especially in today's economy, in today's market, will be way more likely to enroll if you have live accountability. So my accountability came in the form of when you join Course from Scratch, we do a live new member orientation every Monday, and we will be on with you live, walking you through the program, helping you get logged in, and helping you set your launch goal. So how much money do you want to make in the next 30 or 60 days? And let's create your launch timeline together. Boom, accountability. The second thing we did with accountability is on the new student orientation, we help them find accountability partners inside the Course from Scratch program. Okay. So these are things that you can introduce into your offer. How can you offer live accountability? Another form of accountability is having your students submit homework to you every week. I'm taking a couple classes right now, and 2 out of the 3 classes, they give us homework every week and we submit the homework over a WhatsApp group. Okay. So that's accountability. ABC. The B is a blueprint. So I offered a blueprint inside my program. I gave them a spreadsheet that showed here's how you calculate your launch math. how much you want to make, how much you need to price it at, how many people you need to enroll. And then there was another fillable spreadsheet for their timeline. Here's a sample launch timeline and the checklist that is associated with it. This is a blueprint. I also gave them the roadmap, right? It was 6 modules. Go and do the modules in order. This is your blueprint. You follow this and you complete all the steps, you will successfully launch. And if you price it at a premium, you will make the $10,000. Okay. So give your people a blueprint, a roadmap to follow. Then the C is for coaching and community. So I offered coaching because once a month, and in the beginning I did it once a week, but as we scaled, I did it once a month. And I would do a live Q&A. So do a live Q&A. This is a coaching call where you can help your students get out of their own way. If they're like, "Oh, I can't decide between my topics, I can't figure out the launch math," you can do it with them live. So that's coaching. Later, I hired a coach within my community, and she would do workshops twice a month. And these would be workshops that helped you with 2 of our most challenging milestones within the course. So figure out what are the most challenging milestones that your students are getting stuck on, and you can offer live workshops, and we call them tasty workshops. And so you could get on twice a month live and get coached. Now that's the coaching. For the other C, it's community. We offered a live community, and I made it very structured so it was not overwhelming for me. When I got to 6 figures per month, I was still managing my community myself. And it's because I put guardrails in the community. So in the community, I had a question thread. It was only one place that you could post questions, and I would respond to the questions within 48 hours. So that way I didn't have to respond to every comment and check 20 places. There was only one place for a question thread. So I was able to get that done in like 2 hours a week. The other thing I did with the community is within the course, after every milestone, I would prompt them and I would say, post your milestone and your win inside the community. So I had different areas of the community for each module, and that's where they would post their wins. And that was a great place to connect wins and testimonials that we could share later and say, this is what people did inside of our community. All right. Now, we've hosted our community in many different places. We've hosted it on Facebook, on Mighty Networks, on Slack. If I was doing it today and I was starting from scratch, I would probably do it in WhatsApp. Just being real. Oh, another, no, or School. So we also for a short time hosted on School. So if you're going to be building out course materials and a community, then School is a great solution. But if you're doing super low tech, I'm just doing it live and then I'm going to pre-record, then you could do WhatsApp. All right. So those are the ABCs. So in your offer, can you have accountability, a blueprint, and coaching and community? The other things that I did with my offer is I added a pay in full incentive. So when you pay in full, so on this live webinar, when you pay the full $2,000, you do not do the payment plan, but you pay the full $2,000, I'm going to help you collapse time. So the first pay in full incentive I offered was based on one of the results I had recently gotten. So I had recently made $25,000 in 1 month from Instagram without ads. It was all organic. So my pay in full incentive was when you pay in full, you're going to get access to the IG sales blueprint. This is a live 2 hour session where I will be on with you. And it was a group of about 20 people that could be on the session. I will be on for 2 hours. I'm going to show you how to grow your Instagram every day. So how I grew my Instagram to 20,000 followers in a year. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to show you how to write your tasty content. And so live on the session, they actually wrote their first piece of marketing content that they were going to put on Instagram to enroll people in their course. And they would read it to me live and I would give them live feedback. So they left with a post ready to go. I helped them optimize their IG bio so that they could turn strangers into followers. And then I showed them how to set up a simple sales funnel on their IG that could get people to see their IG, sign up for a call, and then enroll in their program. So see how that was a very specific bonus based on a very specific result I got. And it was a way to get people, hey, I made 25K in 1 month. I want to get you there fast. Let's talk about specifically IG. Okay. So you want to ask yourself, what is a specific result you've gotten and create something around that? And again, it could be with any niche. Okay. It could be really anything. Now, another pay in full incentive I did later. So after I crossed 8 figures in my business, I created a bonus When you pay in full, you get access to my 7-figure course roadmap session. So, this is a live 60-minute session where I walk you through how I made $1 million in 2 years. So, I'm going to show you how Course from Scratch is designed to help you make your first $10,000 and then scale up to 6 figures. And a lot have used it to scale to 7 figures. However, in this session, we're not just going to focus on you making your first $10,000. We are going to focus on making $10 to $80,000 per month. So, what is the mindset shifts that you need to make from day one? So, I was teaching more advanced strategies in this bonus session. So, again, the pay in full incentive is for the people who want to pay money so they can pay attention. They want to skip the line. They want to know what is the shortest distance from here to the bag. And the bag doesn't have to be money. The bag could be their health glow up. It could be a better mindset. It could be running that marathon. It could be a healthy relationship at home, whatever that is. All right. Okay, so those are the first big four things. Now let's talk about the boosters. So these are things I did to boost the performance of my webinar. So the first one is that I had a relatable rock bottom story. What I mean by that is when you are opening up your webinar, you want people to get to know you. Again, majority of the people who came on my webinar came through cold traffic. It was from paid ads, cold traffic. If you are doing organic content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, if I was starting over today, I wouldn't start with ads. I would start with organic content. When I started, there wasn't this much organic content. There wasn't this many of us online. So that's why I did ads. But if I was starting today, I would start with YouTube. I would start with organic content. But you need to start with a relatable rock bottom story. What I mean is that you were going to tell the story on how you got started. Think about the hero's journey. You had this epiphany where, you had a win and then you ended up at rock bottom. For me, I lost my job. I was 6 figures in debt. I moved back in with my mom. Right. So you tell that story. And then what was the guide you found that helped you out of that? And then what was the thinking, and then you go into your wins. After launching my course, for you, it's going to be whatever your solution is. After doing this thing, I was able to pay for my dad to go on vacation with us to the Bahamas. And I show the photo of my dad getting on the jet. I was able to have a dream ceremony on the roof of my high rise in New York City. And then you kind of explain all the lifestyle changes. And again, for you, it could be coming out of a low health situation into great health, whatever your rock bottom story is. Okay. The second thing I did is that I had over 40 testimonials in my webinar. Now, if you're just starting out, you may not have 40 testimonials, that's fine. But what you can start with is at least three. So for each of those three misconceptions, I don't have enough time, I don't know about the tech, I don't know how to get traction. I had, after I introduced my framework and the solution, I would then show a testimonial. So I would say Dominique used this framework and she was able to launch and make $10,000 in 30 days. Alicia was able to create a course on co-parenting based on her RES framework, and she was able to make multiple 6 figures and get on Oprah's network. That is a true story. So have a testimonial if you can from someone else you've helped for each of your three misconceptions. And if you don't have clients you've worked with already, then you can just use evidence from your own story. But that really grounds the solution. And then on every webinar, I stayed until the end. So I would stay on for, after I dropped my offer, I would stay on for an additional 30 minutes, sometimes an additional hour, showing additional flash, what were they called? I forget what we call them, but you have to enroll by the end of the webinar to get this bonus. And I would add bonuses like the 3-day email list builder. So when you enroll by the end of this webinar, you're going to get the 3-day email list builder. And again, it's addressing a misconception. If you think you need an email list, then when you enroll right now, you're going to get the 3-day email list builder that is going to help you build that. So those were other things I did. And then I watched the questions they had. That's where I put in a bunch of testimonials that were speaking to how they were going to be able to be successful based on where they were in their life. So the testimonials I picked from, I looked at people who had a variety of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds. And then I would just stay on and answer questions. So, all right, I think that's it. I would love to hear your top takeaways, what you're thinking about with your webinar. Again, they were the one one asset that I could create once and I could keep running it back over and over and over again to the tune of $25 million, and most of that made within 5 years. It is one of those things that can really help you scale and offer quickly. It's something that if you're not running ads, you can use it to have your organic content, your YouTube videos, your TikTok videos, your whatever you're doing. You can drive those to your webinar if you're not running ads yet. And then as you advance, whatever organic content that is performing well, you can just put some money behind it and run those as ads later if you're looking to scale really quickly, like I was. There should be a link to my webinar from scratch program, which goes in way detail about how to create your webinar step by step. It even includes my sample webinar slides so that you can create your own webinar slides. It walks through the ads I ran. It walks through hiring a team if you want to hire a couple people to help you execute your webinar. And then it walks through the difference between doing your webinar live and then how to automate your webinar. So you should see a link to webinar from scratch. And if you want to create your own online course or offer, I have my course from scratch program and bundle with AI tools to help you expedite the process as well. All right. And of course, you can always book me for a VIP session if we have some available for this month. You'll be able to do that, or a VIP weekend where you can come out to Bali in person and we can dive into this. All right. I will see you in the next video.